Tetris still has a rabid fanbase. Over 30 years after the game took Europe by storm, Tetris still has an impressively devoted fanbase. The Tetris World Championship is held annually at the Portland Retro Gaming Expo and sees some of the world's best players going head-to-head in the NES version of the game. Clearly, there are a lot of Tetris fans who can't make it out to Portland, as a video of the 2016 championship finals has achieved over 7 million views on YouTube. When the game turned 30 in 2014, fan meetups were scheduled all around the US, which prompted numerous parties, tournaments, and giveaways. Among other fantastic Tetris-themed prizes, limited edition 30th anniversary t-shirts were printed, and one fan went home with a copy of Jenga Tetris that was signed by Alexei Pajitnov. Nintendo made a fortune off Tetris. Nintendo was the first company to receive legitimate legal rights to Tetris. Subsequently, they were also the first business that truly profited from Tetris. After numerous legal battles, shady dealings, and tense negotiations, Nintendo walked away with the ability to publish the game on handheld and home console devices in February of 1989. By packaging the addicting game with the original Game Boy, Nintendo was able to sell an amazing amount of handheld systems. Despite all his efforts, Robert Stein came away with around $0 in profits. Since his contract with the Lord only gave him rights to computer versions of Tetris, Stein never saw a penny of the money made from console, handheld, mobile, or arcade versions of the game. In contrast to this, on the first day the Game Boy was released in the US, July 31, 1989, Nintendo moved 40,000 units. Today, Tetris is the best-selling game of all time. Despite, or perhaps because of the nebulous rights situation, Tetris became the best-selling video game of all time. Its association with the Nintendo Game Boy was largely responsible for its worldwide appeal. For a time, a copy of Tetris came bundled with all new Game Boys. As of 2018, Tetris has sold over 170 million copies across countless platforms. That's almost 30 million more copies sold than the next best-selling game, Minecraft. While the game's early days might have been a mess of rights violations and back-alley deals, Tetris's addictive gameplay is still entrancing players decades later. Atari's unlicensed cartridge cost them a lot of money. Few companies in the struggle for Tetris rights were hit as hard as Atari. Atari sub-licensed the game from Mirrorsoft and produced an arcade version of Tetris in 1988. Tengen, the company's publishing arm, also released a port for the NES in May 1989, but that only served to complicate matters further. That same year, Hank Rogers finalized a deal with the Lord that granted Nintendo exclusive rights to the console version of Tetris. The deal was broached in February 1989 and finalized within a couple months. Nintendo sued Atari and won, making it impossible for Atari to continue selling the game they thought they had the rights to. At the time of the verdict, Atari had only sold about 100,000 copies of the game, and the company was ordered to recall and destroy all unsold cartridges, which resulted in a huge financial loss. The creator couldn't sell the game. Because Alexei Pajitnov developed the game in a communist nation, he didn't have ownership over it the way that he would have had it been developed somewhere else. Private business was illegal. This didn't bother Pajitnov. He was happy sharing the game with his friends for free. However, this also meant that Pajitnov's design spread without any copyright protection attached to it, which ultimately led to others forging the rights. While it's reported that Pajitnov lost out on roughly $1 million by allowing his brainchild to be sold by outside parties, he did receive some proper recognition in the late 90s. When Allure dissolved in 1996, Hank Rogers, who brought about the Game Boy version of Tetris, returned to Moscow and was able to successfully have the game's rights transferred to Pajitnov, who had been living in the US since 1991. When this happened, the duo founded the Tetris Company, which currently holds all rights to the game. Stein bought some rights to Tetris, but they didn't make him money. Though Andromeda's Robert Stein did eventually gain partial rights for the game, his methods were notoriously underhanded. In addition to selling the rights before he legally owned them, Stein also falsely claimed that the game was invented by Hungarian programmers rather than by Russia's Alexei Pajitnov. Eventually, Stein was able to acquire the rights for computer versions of the game, but a subtle clause prevented him from seeing the majority of Tetris's profits. While in negotiations with the Soviet Union, Stein signed a contract that defined a computer as a device that included a processor, monitor, operating system, disk drive, and keyboard. In the 1980s, it was hard to imagine a computer that didn't feature these facets. What's more, Stein was apparently unaware of the clause and was most likely operating under the belief that arcade cabinets and home consoles were technically computers. Since the agreement said otherwise, Stein had no claim to the staggering amount of cash that the Game Boy version of Tetris wrought, nor did he profit off of modern versions of the game that were made for smartphones and tablets. In the end, Stein only made about $0 off of Tetris. The fight for the Tetris license was long and vicious. Though Nintendo did eventually secure the legitimate rights to Tetris, the deal required a staggering amount of work to achieve. When the agreement was broached, Andromeda's Robert Stein and Mirrorsoft's Kevin Maxwell made a legitimate bid for the rights they had already sublicensed to other companies, and engaged in some underhanded tactics to get what they wanted. Kevin Maxwell's father Robert, who founded Mirrorsoft, was rumored to have reached out to Mikhail Gorbachev to prevent Rogers from gaining the rights. Because Stein had sold him a fabricated license, Rogers was made to sit through an hours-long meeting with the KGB. To add to the confusion, the FBI later suggested that Robert Maxwell had been a spy for Russia. Despite these mishaps, Nintendo eventually came out on top in 1989, and were able to include a copy of Tetris with every Game Boy sold in America. The system was released in the US in July of that year. While Stein did eventually finalize an agreement for the rights to computer versions of Tetris, a sneaky clause added to the contract at the last minute caused him to only see a fraction of the riches he had hoped for. Russia discovered all the illicit Tetris games in a meeting with Nintendo. Russia discovered all the illicit Tetris games in a meeting with Nintendo. CEO began selling the rights to Tetris without buying them. Tetris was created by a Russian government employee. Tetris was created by a Russian government employee.
Hey guys, thank you so much for the support and likes and comments down below, and also thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to see you in the next video. Then take care.